What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, our final October show for this year. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, I don't know if you had this conversation with anybody, but I did. I called my dad, and I said I hated him for making me become a Buffalo Bills fan.
I did not, but I understand where you're coming from. It is frustrating, and I think, I don't know, just being a Bills fan for as long as we have, we've known pretty much nothing but frustration and depression. And I feel like because of that, it feels like the walls are closing in very quickly on this Buffalo Bills team, and I don't really like to be doom and gloom about this team, but it's looking scarier than I would like to admit.
Yeah, if you're claustrophobic, it's a bad season to be claustrophobic. Yeah,
Remember
how I said
basically, like, they got the entire team right now packed into one elevator. It's not even like a freight elevator, it's just a basic hotel lobby elevator. They got 56 plus people trying to cram into there, and it's closing quick. It's closing quick.
Yeah, and you got to go up multiple flights, and it's close. But yeah, I called him and I just said, thanks for this, sarcastically, and I said, you made me become a fan of a team that breaks my heart over and over again. You're the team that makes me have stress-induced episodes during watching all these games. Remember at the end of last episode, I would just like one game where you blow them out and I don't have to have my blood pressure checked after each game because I already have high blood pressure. It didn't happen. So we're going to dive into it. But first, remember you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective and on X, and we're on Blue Sky now, Phil, at Buffalo Sports Co. Same as X there. So we have a fallback when the inevitable happens and X disappears. So Buffalo Sports Co. there. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and look for time breakdowns in the description of the show so you can skip right past this garbage-filled Buffalo Bills talk that we're going to have here. Bills versus Patriots. Second to last 1 o'clock game, and they broke my absolute heart. They lost 29-25 on a last couple second touchdown by Mac Jones to Mike Gesicki. Phil, take it away wherever you want to run with this pathetic show of a team that we have to watch every Sunday, Thursday, Monday, garbage times all over the place.
Yeah, I wonder. I think next year, if this keeps up, you're going to be looking at a lot more 1 o'clock games again. So
I'll be happy at least for that.
There's that. Yeah, I mean, we can start with an obvious stat that I decided to look up that is becoming more and more apparent as these last few weeks have gone on. So we'll start there. Obviously, we can start with the offense. We'll start negative. I think the whole game, for the most part, was negative, but we will start with what should be a weekly positive that is turning into a weekly negative. So weeks 1 through 4, quarters 1 through 3, the Bills were able to put up 98 points, and in the fourth quarter they were able to put up 41 points. In weeks 5 through 7, their last 3 games where the offense has completely vanished, the quarters 1 through 3, they put up a whopping 17 points combined, and then in the fourth quarter they come out and put up 42 points. So I know it's 4 games versus 3 games, but you're looking at a 98-17 point difference between quarters 1 through 3, and then the fourth quarter has stayed the exact same through the entire season at 41 points or 42 combined throughout all the weeks. It just what is happening to start these games at the first 3 quarters, the last 3 weeks, you're putting up 17 combined points. That is ridiculously bad for a team that is supposed to be this good on offense. And again, 3 straight games of, was that 9 quarters, you're putting up 17 points against mediocre teams. I mean, even if you want to look at the Patriots as having supposedly a good defense, the last 3 weeks they've given up 21 to Vegas, 31 to the Saints, and 38 to the Cowboys. So none of those offenses, maybe the Cowboys, but even them, they're struggling quite a bit on offense in general. You would assume Vegas and the Saints, the Bills would have the better offense of those two teams, and yet they were able to put up 21 and 31 without too much of an issue. So knowing that they can do at least decent against this defense, you'd think the Bills would come out and be able to put up more than what they did. It's just scary. It's very scary for what this offense is lacking to do until it is, do or die last seconds of the game. We need a bunch of points, and Josh Allen, I guess, decides that he wants to play football, and then all of a sudden turns it on, and the offense finds its rhythm and learns how to play again. But the first 3 quarters, they don't seem interested in playing at all.
Yeah, for the first half, I'll add another stat to your stat. First half, the last 3 games per Howard Simon, 15 drives. They've scored 1 touchdown, have 1 field goal, 13 drives with no points. They've had 24 first downs and averaged 26 yards per drive. 5 3-and-outs, 2 drives that went for more than 6 plays that resulted in a missed field goal and a field goal. The defense couldn't stop anybody on the final drive. Like, that's the biggest knock I have against them. I'm very, very nervous about how this defense has been performing since your star players went out. I mean, you've lost Tre'Davious White, then Matt Milano, then Daquan Jones. You didn't have Ed Oliver last game. Von Miller's playing 6 snaps yesterday or on Sunday. You had the rookie Dorian Williams had to get pulled and placed in was Tyrell Dodson. Terrell Bernard didn't have a good game. I thought this was the worst performance by Taron Johnson in his whole career with the Buffalo Bills. The defense is something that we're going to have to be worried about all season long because they only allowed 9 points last week, but they won by a yard. Tyrod Taylor screwed up. And I don't want to nitpick last week, but the defense is something to be concerned about. But, and I'm not trying to make excuses, they have a built-in excuse. They're missing their star players. They don't have it. The offense, so that's pretty much all I'm going to say about the defense because you're going to have to either make trades or people are going to have to step up or whatnot because you're not getting those 3 all-pro players back. They're gone for the season. It's over. It's finished. They're gone. The offense, though, and I know they just reported Dawson Knox is done for who knows how long because of wrist surgery. But he was dropping balls anyway, so maybe your offense gets better because Dalton Kincaid is on the field more often. Who knows? The offense doesn't have any of those excuses because they're not missing anybody, Phil. It's just, I'll have a rant in a minute, but this offense is just the shell of itself. What happened to the game versus Miami? And the biggest thing that you can sum up with it is they went out and said, hey, we're going to just outscore you and see if you can catch up. The next 3 games, it's like, hey, we're going to play conservative. We're going to run the ball. We're going to take some time off the clock, move down the field, give our defense a break. And ideally, that's a good method to do it when your defense is so hurt. Hey, keep our defense off the field as long as possible. They get less time on the field on their offense, so on and so forth. But when you're not finishing drives and you're dropping third down passes that not extended and you have to punt the ball and there's turnovers and all this blah, 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 you're actually hurting your defense because your defense is going to have to come up with big stops and they're already missing so many pieces. So until this offense gets right, your defense can give up, 9 points and you still almost lose to the Giants. The issue is not on the defensive end. Yes, or the defensive side. Yes, they're missing a ton of players, and yes, it's going to be nerve-wracking all year long, but teams have won the Super Bowl with worse defenses than the Buffalo Bills have right now. And I'm not saying they're winning a Super Bowl because I already said they're not winning a Super Bowl after last show, but this offense has to get right. That is the main talking point, and I'm sick and tired of seeing people complain about the defense, that the defense is the reason the offense isn't scoring. It's backwards. The offense needs to go out and score points to help the defense, not the other way around. The defense has been bailing out the offense for weeks now. They had one bad game, and now everybody's jumping down the defense's throat. Yes, I'm worried about the defense, but the offense is the main concern for this team moving forward from 3 weeks ago until the end of the season, and I'm terrified of what is to come.
Yeah, another point to the defense. I mean, one of the big things you can do to help your defense is score a ton of points so it opens up the other team's offense. They have to, play in a pass mode. They have to try to catch up. They can't play conservative themselves. They can't really run the ball. So then you're looking at a lot more passing down situations. You're looking at a lot of riskier situations where they're throwing the ball a lot more. That opens up turnovers, opens up sacks, opens up pretty much everything for the defense as well. So even if you're going to play conservative, putting up points and putting them up quickly also helps your defense because then they get a little bit more freedom to kind of just play, you're looking at a one-dimensional offense at that point because they have to play catch-up, so they're going to be passing a lot more. It puts them in, again, just bigger sack opportunities, bigger interceptions, bigger fumbles. Like, everything opens up for the defense as well, especially with how aggressive they're being on defense with blitzing and everything. I think that opens up even more if the other team is trying to play catch-up the rest of the game, but I don't know. I don't know what the Bills can do on offense to fix what is going on, and I don't understand really what's going on. I mean, again, you hate the comparisons of Kansas City because we don't have Andy Reid. I 100% understand that, but they're able to put up Mahomes just put up like 400 yards with pretty much no wide receivers available to him, yet they are able to find a way. And if the Bills could be even half of that, or just any kind of, and anything even near, I feel like their game plan seems really off. Dorsey seems very off. What they're just able to do seems wrong. I mean, again, I'd like to blame Allen for some of this for sure, but if the game plan is to be conservative, I mean, yes, you have to finish drives no matter what, but do we think that Dorsey is kind of, and just the team in general is kind of just holding back the reins until the fourth quarter when they're finally down and just letting Allen sling it in the fourth quarter because they absolutely have to? Like, is it the first three quarters, the last three games, and games that the other team doesn't have much of an offense, you're supposed to win? Like you said, you're playing conservative. Is it just time to, like, I just don't know how you look at a team like Miami and not want to play that kind of style of football, or even KC, who just puts up a ton of points. But even Miami this year, they're out there trying to score touchdowns as quickly as possible every single drive up the score, have a lot of fun. Their team looks like they're enjoying life. And the Bills come out here and they look about as sad and depressed as a team that is supposed to be a Super Bowl hopeful can possibly look. And they just look terrible. Like, they just don't. There's no fire behind this team for the first three quarters. And it doesn't come until 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter that all of a sudden you see some kind of spark, some kind of life. I mean, look at New England. Look at what they were able to not only accomplish by beating the Bills, but just look how fired up they were after every single play. Like, Mac Jones is fired up after every completion he basically gets, or anything they did positive on offense. Their defense was ridiculously fired up the entire game. And then you look at the Bills and nobody's cheering, no one's doing anything, everyone's just sitting down. Like, it just doesn't seem like they care nearly as much. And you're looking at the Patriots and a 1-5 team, likely not making playoffs, and the Bills still have playoff AFC East aspirations, and they look, like the team that is 1-5 and their season's over.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen is having a statistically good season. Like, that's all I keep hearing is the stats are there. He's having one of his best seasons he's ever has as a passer. He's got 1,841 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He's completing just under 71% of his completions, or his passes. How's that working out for this offense? I mean, you want him to be this. They're trying to turn him into something that it takes away his special ability, and what made him become one of the top quarterbacks in the league is his rushing. I did this math. He's on pace currently for 70 rushes for 360 yards. That would be the lowest of his entire career. And I completely understand and actually appreciate the team wanting to protect him. Like, I get it. You're not winning a Super Bowl if Josh Allen is hurt or injured or whatever going into the playoffs. But doing that, you're now risking yourself missing the playoffs completely now. I think I saw that right now they're the 7th seed in the AFC. They've got 3 losses right now, and your schedule gets tougher. Like, the start of your season, when we went over that in the offseason, we got to stack the wins in the beginning because your schedule, they pack the beginning easy, and then towards the end is the tough games. You still got Philly on your schedule, Cincinnati, you still got the Chargers, and I know they're bad right now. You still got Miami one more time, Kansas City. I mean, this pack end of this schedule is tough. They're going to have to pull some quote-unquote upsets now because they dropped 2 games that they should have had. Actually, if you want to say them, 3. They should have beaten the Jets. I mean, even though the Jets were just spanking them defensive-wise in the first game, you should have beat New England here, and you should have beat the Jags. It's just, I can't understand why they are taking one of the most unique aspects of Josh Allen's abilities is his rushing. It's either he's afraid to rush, he's listening to the coaching staff finally where they said don't run. I don't know what it is, but that seems to be the main change in the offense besides just, trying to score in two plays. They kind of I'm not trying to compare the two, but they almost went to Mike McCarthy with this offense where they went, we need to slow down the pace, score less points to give our defense longer rest. And you see how that's working out for the Cowboys right now. It's just, I can't understand why they're taking such a unique skill set of Josh Allen and saying, hey, we want to protect you, keep you in the pocket, and turn you into a pocket passer. Have they not looked at past history? Most of the times when quarterbacks get hurt, they're in the pocket. Not very often do running quarterbacks get hurt because you're able to brace yourselves. You're able to get down. You're able to slide and nobody can hit you. You're able to get out of bounds. When you're hit by the blind side, that's usually when you get hurt. He got hurt when he was trying to be a passer. Weird. How'd your shoulder get hurt? You weren't running. You were running backwards and got slammed down. So it's just, I can't understand. And it kind of goes back to maybe we're putting too much blame on Ken Dorsey. And again, this is all speculated. Maybe this is Sean McDermott since he took over play calling on the defensive end or defensive side. I don't know why I keep saying defensive end. Defensive side of the ball. He's trying to be too conservative, not even like conservative because he's still going for it on fourth downs, but he's almost like, hey, my defense is hurting right now. We need to have these slower, methodical, well-balanced drives where we get the running game involved and like that. And you're taking away all the bells and whistles of what you had working with the offensive side of the ball. And just, it's both not helping your offense and it's also hurting your defense, and it's crushing this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the last two games before New England, you'd think that coming into New England, not only would the team be fired up that they just lost a terrible game, but at the same time, or just, barely won another one, that they would just come in and want to, as an offense, just take over and, like that Allen in the locker room or whatever would not be like, just let me play how I want to play and let me bury this team. This offense is terrible the last 2 weeks. Like, I know we can play better. Let's go out there and show that we can do. I really thought that coming into this game, they would come in angry and upset, and the offense especially would just come out and light it up like we've seen them do in the past, and there was just absolutely none of that. And I get that, just as you were kind of explaining the defensive side of things, that I do understand that if your offense is freewheeling like Allen can play, sometimes that can go, to a lot of 3-and-outs because he's playing a little bit more risky, can have more turnovers, which if that's the case, then your defense is on the field a lot more often and a lot quicker, and maybe they just feel that because they don't have the depth to rotate nearly as many players as they like to do. I mean, it's a big rotational defense. I mean, that's one of the big things that this team is all about, is having a lot of depth at every single position so that when someone gets tired, you can rotate them out. You don't really lose a ton. Someone else can step in and play a couple snaps while the other guy gets some rest. And now you've lost all that. So almost exactly as you were explaining it, is like they're scared that the offense will have too many short drives, too many 3-and-outs, possibly too many turnovers if they let them loose, because then the defense just going to get gassed early on in the game, let alone the entire game. So I wonder if they're just worried about that aspect of it. But I mean, after these last 3 games, I don't know how you don't just turn to the offense and say, just do whatever you guys have to do to put up points and find a way and make it happen, because there's just not much going on there, and you can't keep winning and losing games like this.
Right, and even in that aspect where they're worried about too many 3-and-outs, the last 3 first halves, 33% of your drives have been 3-and-outs. So what do you got to lose but to change it back? Your offense was a juggernaut when they were doing good. And all those advanced stats and stuff like that are out there, and yes, they play a key role in sports. They play a key role in explaining the game. But I saw a stat that were saying that the offense is the second best offense in the league the last three weeks. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know what. Again, I'm not a stat person. The advanced stats, they go well beyond my head. They go right over it. But if you're looking at these stats and you're watching the game and you're telling me that this offense has been the second best offense in the league, you need to rework those stats because they're a flat out lie. If you're saying that the reason that this offense isn't working is because the defense can't get off the field and it's not giving the offense enough drives, they put up 14 points versus the New York Giants and they didn't score until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
What? They didn't score. They had 3 points at halftime versus New England. What are you talking about that this is the second best offense in the league the last 3 weeks? It doesn't make any sense. That's why so many people get angry at these advanced stats. If you're looking at that and you go, that makes sense, and you still put it out, what are you doing? Like, come on. And this is not a shot at them because they're just putting out the stats that they see, but come on, like you're honestly thinking and seeing and based on your stats that this offense that you've seen the last 3 weeks is the second best offense in the league right now. You're insane, and I don't know what else to say, Phil. It's just this offense is messed up because they're not using the unicorn of a quarterback the correct way, and also he is not excelling at what they're trying to make him be. He was rough on Sunday. He was not very good on Sunday. He was missing throws all over the place, but he's been missing throws for the last few weeks as well. So it's just they have to fix this. I thought the New England game was going to be the get-right game. If they go out and throw a turd burger at home versus the Buccaneers, my God. I mean, it's bad right now after last week and then this week. It's going to be absolute mayhem on the field and, all around Buffalo if they drop one to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I don't know too many top 5 offenses that score a combined 17 points through 9 quarters in the last 3 games. That doesn't sound like
Bravo.
A very good offense to me.
But Phil, I guess there were some good things in this heap pile of a turd. I thought Kincaid was really good. They actually used him, and shocker, he actually performed well. The one benefit to Dawson Knox's injury, actually there's 2. One, he can't drop first down passes anymore, and 2, it puts Kincaid on the field more often. And I love that, and they seem to go to him a lot. Diggs, the move to score where he slid into home, stood up, and then ran it in the end zone. That was unbelievable. Poyer's punch out and Bernard's recovery was great. And then Cook looked good. I just wish they would use him more in the passing game than the rushing game because I think them trying to establish the run too much is keeping the offense from being that electric, high-powered offense that it once was and now is a shell of itself.
Yeah, I mean, Kincaid 8 for 8 for 75. That looks incredible. And exactly, kind of who you drafted him to be, who he realistically should be. He looks really, really good. I mean, again, 8 for 8. I mean, that pretty much tells you everything with a lot of these other targets not doing nearly as well. I mean, Shakir even 4 for 4 with his game. I know he was used kind of sparingly, only at 35 yards, but when they needed him to make a big catch, I mean, 4 for 4. A player like that, absolutely love it. Like you said, Dawson Knox 1 for 3, not great. Gabe Davis 1 for 5, pretty awful. So I mean, some of these players that they need to integrate more into the offense. I'm not seeing Shakir by any means is going to go out there and be an all-star anytime soon, but he can still be that kind of sneaky player that teams aren't really paying attention to, looking for, that can get you a couple of third down conversions with his pretty good ability to catch the ball. He's made a lot of big catches throughout his very small career so far. And then again, exactly like you said, hopefully they can start utilizing Kincaid a lot more. I mean, if 8 for 8 doesn't prove to you that he deserves, to get his training wheels taken off even more than he already has and just be a full-time player in this offense, especially, like you said, with Knox going down. But again, Gabe Davis just simply not stepping up into any role. And I think that's also, it's partially not his fault. I mean, he's clearly just not the prototypical wide receiver 2 that you want him to be. Like, if you look at the Eagles and they have A.J. Brown, who you can equivalent to Stephon Diggs, and then they have Devonta Smith, who, if you want to say, would be your Gabe Davis, like, just the make of them is not even close. Like, Devonta Smith's more of a Stephon Diggs build, and then A.J. Brown is just a massive human being who's amazing at football, but he's just not. He's your wide receiver 3, deep threat, big guy, end zone guy, stretch the field kind of player. He's not going to be your wide receiver 2 that you're looking to step up. And I'm not saying Shakir can really be that either. I think it has to be spread out between mainly Shakir and Kincaid, they have to be kind of your more wide receiver 2 type players that, again, they're not a true wide receiver 2 by any means. Kincaid looked really good and arguably could be the team's wide receiver 2 moving forward, even though he's a tight end. But Gabe Davis is just not going to be that guy. And with the style of play they've had the last 3 weeks of this conservative type football, that's not what Gabe Davis can do for your team. He's the field stretcher. He's the one that, gets you those huge chunk 30, 40, 50-yard plays and a really long touchdown. He's not going to be the guy who is going to be a go-to to methodically move down the field. So the way they've been playing offense is almost eliminating his style of play. And then you've seen a player like Shakir and especially Kincaid in this last game step up into that role a little bit more, but hopefully Kincaid, more than anyone, can really step into that kind of wide receiver 2 type role that I think Allen is also just missing still. And then Gabe Davis can kind of go back to his play action pass, long kind of 20, 30-yard range that he has. But he is just not your prototypical wide receiver 2 that this team kind of needs.
I'll just keep patting myself on the back because I've been calling it for, 2, 3 years now.
He's a good wide receiver 3. He is, but he's just not.
He's not a 2.
He's not a wide receiver 2. Again, you look at even Cincinnati. I know they're banged up, but Chase and Higgins, that's your style of 2 wide receivers that are really good that you're looking for, and Diggs and Davis just are not that. I mean, Diggs is, but Davis is not that complementary guy to play off of Diggs. They need a true wide receiver 2 to step up, and it looks like as of last game at least, hopefully moving forward, it might be Kincaid to be used in that role.
Debo, Ayuk, Hill, and Waddle.
Right.
Do I have to continue?
Davis just isn't that. And again, he's a great wide receiver 3 to have on a team for those big splash plays. That's what he does really, really well. And I mean, big game Gabe is, it's there for a reason. When they're down, they need a big 40-yard quick conversion. He's usually there for it, but he's just not going to be your every down wide receiver 2 that this team really needs right now.
So I'll say it again. They need to win on Thursday versus the Buccaneers, home versus the Baker Mayfield-led team. And if they lose again, I might just, when we hit record, I might not be in the seat. Just let it roll for 20 minutes, and that'll be our talking point of the Bills, and then we'll move on to the Sabres. Like we're about to do right now. Got 3 games to cover. I know they have a game on Monday and Tuesday, but we're recording a little bit earlier on Monday because I'm going on Talking Buffalo right after the Sabres game, so I got to watch it live. Thank you again, Phil, for accommodating this. Last Tuesday, Tampa Bay, they got their first win. 3-2 in overtime. Zemgus Girgensson, Skinner, and Cousins in overtime made all the goals go in the net. Devin Levi, 23 of 25 saves, and the shots were 31-25 in favor of the Sabres. The Saturday game in New York, I skipped one. Thursday, they lost 4-3. Peterka, Tage, and Johnson were the goal scorers. Levi, 32 of 36 saves. Shots were 36-27 in favor of the Flames. And then Phil, final one we're going to discuss here. Saturday, 3-1 win over New York. Skinner, Samuelson, and Cousins were the goal scorers. Comrie started in this one, 24 of 25 saves. Shots were 43-25 in favor of the Sabres. Record sitting at 2-3 on this young season. I don't know where you want to start, but take it away with the Buffalo Sabres.
I guess we can start with their first W of the season that was almost not one and got very scary for a little bit there at the very end. I think they played really, really well against Tampa Bay. I think it was a big bounce back for the entire team. I think they outplayed Tampa quite a bit in this one. I know the shots were in favor of the Sabres as well, but I mean, for the most part, it just looked like they dominated Tampa Bay. I know Tampa Bay didn't have Stamkos and they don't have their top goalie. I get it. So it's not quite Tampa Bay that you're used to, but at the same time, they still have very talented players even outside of that. And the Sabres looked like they just dominated the entire game. I think Tampa Bay was lucky to be even in this game at all. I think the Sabres could have had a few other extra opportunities in this one, and for them to have to fight back in overtime after 7 seconds left. I mean, even that is a huge talking point, that with Tampa Bay kind of coming back in this one and even 7 seconds left, getting that goal, they had all the momentum going into overtime, and then right into overtime, the Sabres took the puck, didn't let go of it the entire time until they scored, and just absolutely dominated the overtime possession as well. And again, that's a big mentality thing for this team, a young team that you're winning the whole game, and then 7 seconds left, you let the other team tie it up. You could be down, you could pout about it, or you could go out and play incredible OT hockey and win the game. And that's exactly what they did. I thought it was a pretty dominating overtime victory. I think if you just look at the fact that they won 3-2 in overtime against Tampa, I think, from an outsider perspective, you're like, oh, it's, they might have gotten lucky. But I think when you actually watch this game, they looked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, the better team won this one. I saw it breaking down in the third. I thought they got a little bit too conservative in this one, where it was like, rather than continue to push the tempo, they kind of held back a bit. They still had their opportunities, but Tampa Bay was handling the puck way too much, and it was almost like, okay, when's this going to happen? And then Dahlin kind of got pushed out of the play, and then he was slow to get back in, and they tied it, like you said, with 7 seconds to go. But in overtime, I don't think Tampa Bay had possession of the puck. I think they touched it, but I don't think they had it at all. And that's the type of Sabres performance. This is the game that kind of unleashed what they were. You kind of saw it in the second game where, against the Islanders, where it was slowly coming on, but they still lost that game. And then Tampa Bay rolls into town on Tuesday, and it was like something unleashed. And your top point producing players were actually buzzing around. I mean, that pass from Power to Skinner, unbelievable. And then the pass from, I think it was Jost to a streaking Zemgus Girgensson, it was beautiful. Yep. I mean, the Sabres just utterly dominated this team, and it showed that Tampa Bay is slowly on their way out, and that's what happens when you pay your top players and then they get older and then you can't replace them and all that kind of stuff. And again, Stamkos and Vasilevsky were out, but
Stamkos
the Sabres were just clearly the better team in this one. It's shown. But Thursday, they faced on Calgary. I not trying to say I would have made a different decision because I would have started Levi in this one, but Levi was a big reason they lost this game because he was just not his normal self. He was not strong. He looked slow post to post. It almost seemed like a guy who, weird, came straight out of college, is not used to playing this kind of workload. And again, I'm not putting this on him. I probably would have done the same thing. Coming off a big win in Tampa Bay, I would have went back to Levi too. But it kind of showed, and it was another reason why I wanted some veteran presence behind him. And credit to Comrie, he showed it on Saturday, and we'll give him credit when credit is due in a second. But I thought he let in a couple weak goals and was just a little bit more chaotic in net than we're used to seeing. And again, it came right down to it. They still had an opportunity to win. It's just I thought Levi was a big reason they didn't win because he didn't come up with those big saves when you needed him to.
Yeah, I mean, 32 saves is still a lot. 36 shots to give up for the Sabres, not ideal for what you're looking for. But like you said, the goals that Levi did give up are very unlike him. And I think even going into this game, I think I was kind of commenting to you before this one that we really haven't seen Levi give up too many, if any. I'm sure there's a couple from last season, but for the most part, he just doesn't really let in soft goals. For the most part, the ones that are going in are, rifled off of the post and in where he's right there and just misses it, or it's a really bad rebound and he's out of position because, it was a rebound that was just a scramble and he makes a save, they don't clean it up, or it's like the one coming from the boards where it's just slapped out in front all of a sudden and then they still get a great shot off. So for the most part, we just haven't seen him give up too many weak ones where I feel like UPL was the one who, for the most part, was making those really big saves at times, but then at the same time, it was like right at him and he just would accidentally move his glove or tip off him and you're like, what are you doing? And we just haven't seen that too much from Levi until this game. He definitely did not look like his normal self, and even had someone who went to the game mention the exact same thing, that he just was not seeing the puck very well, didn't seem like the Levi we are used to. And I do think a big part of it is exactly what you said. He's not used to playing this kind of hockey back to back to back to back. Again, I know we did at the end of the year last year, but at the same time, last year everything was kind of ramped up for them trying to make playoffs, so he's probably playing with a little bit extra juice. Not saying that he's not trying by any means, but it's a different atmosphere when your team needs every single win. You're trying to push for playoffs than it is at the very start of a season. So I think a few of these games, just being back-to-back, I think he just looked off. And I think for the most part, they were still in this one for most of the game and still had a really good chance to potentially win it. But at the same time, like you said, it's tough to blame Levi. I don't blame Granato for throwing him back in because I think for the most part, you're going to ride him to see what his breaking point is in a weird way. I mean, like, why not ride him until he can't do it? I mean, obviously, at some point, you're going to give the kid a break. But this early on in the season, coming off he's just very fresh. I don't think you would have thought to pull him before this game.
Yeah, and it might have been whatever he was battling because again, we're recording before the Monday game, but he's not going to play in the Monday or Tuesday game. So maybe it was whatever that nagging injury was, and he can go for, and he was just fighting through something. So that could have been it as well. But again, the passing in this one was horrible as well. I mean, the offense wasn't getting him any, big time breaks either. But again, he let in two. So that fourth goal that ended up being the winner, I don't know how that one went in, and I guess I'll blame it on the injury. But they turned it around quick. They needed to win this one. Not a must win, but I thought they needed this one for a confidence builder. You had Benson go out on injury. You had Levi go out on injury, so you don't have your two young rookies. Didn't matter. They utterly dominated the New York Islanders, and it stinks that Comrie didn't get the shutout because of a weak knuckler that went off Clifton and passed him with seconds. Yeah, seconds to go. But I thought Comrie showed what we kind of saw in preseason, that he can be a reliable number two as long as he doesn't have too much pressure on him. But I thought he played very well. I thought the team just utterly dominated the Islanders. I mean, the Islanders, you could tell they were the slow team. The Islanders, what you got to do against them, you got to get up early, because then they have to adjust their game. If they go up early, you kind of saw what happened in the first game of the season with them, is they kind of slowed their roll. But I thought in this one, they went out early. The goals were unbelievable. I mean, Middlestad in this one, he took the cake. It was unbelievable. But I thought Comrie did very well. And Phil, I don't know what happened, but the penalty kill is unbelievable now. 18 straight kills. They have not let one in since the very first one. And the power play, rough, terrible. But the only other stat, and then you can take it away, they're 2-0 when they shoot over 30 shots a game, and they're 0-3 when they shoot under. So get those shots up, boys. That's a sticky stack right there.
Yeah, I thought the Islanders game was incredible. And one of the weird things, I mean, not to mention the black and red, they just, I don't know what this team is when they put those jerseys on. They are a different team for sure.
And Superman.
Yeah, I get that, sometimes putting a different jersey on honestly is a little bit of an excitement boost for the team. I remember playing in high school, we used to have a few different jerseys, and whenever you got to put on the alternate jersey, it just felt a little different, a little more exciting, and it's a weird thing, but it's different for sure, and sports are very superstitious, so kind of adds all up. But at the same time, I thought they looked really, really good. One of the weird things that seems to happen with sports in general, I mean, you can kind of talk about the Bills playing down to the level of some of the worst teams that they're playing right now, but even I think we've seen it from the Sabres. I think it happens in the NHL overall. I'm not just saying it's a Sabres thing, but when the backup goalie comes in, it seems like the team really likes to turn it on and also really likes to shut down the amount of shots that go to the goalie. I thought Comrie played really well. He made a few really big saves, so this isn't really a knock on him, but at the same time, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that this is the most lopsided shooting that they've had the entire season, 43-25. Yes. So again, I think it's just a little bit different. Like, the team seems to play different when they have a backup goalie in, and we've seen it again throughout, years of the NHL and years of the Sabres, that when their number one goalie isn't in, they play just a little bit tighter defense, I feel like. And then when someone like Levi is in, where they can get a little bit looser on offense, a little bit looser on defense, take a little bit riskier of an approach because you have a really good goalie back there that can bail you out if needed. I feel like when the backup comes in, everything tightens up a little bit more because you're just a little bit scared about anything kind of going in or really, letting any of those odd man opportunities or anything. But still, overall, they played really, really well against the Islanders. They looked like the much better team. And I mean, you're fighting the Islanders and Tampa are both teams that, are going to be playoff contending possible teams that you're going to have to leapfrog. So these, like you said, it's not necessarily a must win, but at the same time, it's almost a must win this early on in the season. Like, yes, you can't say that a 2-3 record, you're already, if you lose this game, it's over for you by any means. But at the same time, one of the big things that they need to avoid this year is getting into, losing streak that they had a few years. Like last year, they had a really big one, and that's something they just absolutely have to avoid. So I think trying to string some wins together would be huge, but making sure that you don't get in any kind of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game losing streak is also huge. So I I think this was a really big bounce back game for the team. We'll see what they do without Levi and without Benson moving forward, without that black and red jersey on, but it was a really good bounce back from the Calgary game.
Yeah, I think moving forward, the penalty kills got to keep doing what they're doing. I think they're pressuring them entering the zone at the blue line, and it's causing a lot of turnovers and killing a lot of the clock and avoiding those same situations that you saw in game one. And I'm looking like a complete idiot because I went on this show and I went on Talking Buffalo and said the PK just looks terrible right now because there's wide open players all the time. They've addressed it after game one, and it's been lights out since. So hopefully they can keep that going. Power play, though, that drop back pass, if I see it one more time, I'm going on the ice and I'm challenging one of the players to a fight. And yes, I will get knocked out cold, but I will prove a point. That drop back pass is the stupidest thing in the world. Stop doing it because it's allowing more time for their defense to set up at the blue line, and they're doing the same thing that Buffalo's doing to them, where they're stopping them at the blue line cold, and then you can't set anything up in their zone. So if they get the power play going on top of scoring some of these 5-on-5s, and again, I love the line changes that they made going into the Islanders game, putting Middlestad with Skinner, and
Middlestad's been incredible so far.
He's been unbelievable, and setting up Skinner, having Skinner have like a legit playmaker, and that's not a shot at Thompson, that's not a shot at Tuck, but I think Middlestad with the puck in his stick, he's more of a distributor, and he's leading I think he's like in the top 5 of 5-on-5 assists since last year, maybe. Don't quote me on that one, but I thought I remember seeing that one. But when the puck's on his stick, he just makes things happen. And in the move that he made to get Skinner wide open in the third game, the move along the boards where Skinner just made it through 2 checks and still got the puck to Middlestad. He skated past the net, didn't panic, found Samuelson wide open. I'd like that pairing there with Middlestad and Skinner. So hopefully, and I do see them going into the Monday game with the same lineup. But moving forward, Comrie, another game on Monday. I guess we'll see what happens on the next show. You guys will know before us. But if you can keep these going, getting the power play going, I think this team will go on a roll. But like you said, they got to avoid the big losing streaks like they had last year. So Phil, we'll go over the next talking points and the next games on our next show. This is kind of what stinks about just one show a week, that we kind of fall behind and have to catch up. But Phil, Fantasy Blitz here. 2 weeks ago, I had Dak Prescott, who had the Monday night game, and we didn't have it. He finished third in quarterback scoring, so I got that one. And then this last week, Jalen Waddle, I had he was ranked 40th, finished 29th. But Phil, you tied me in overall. We're both at 2-2 now. Saquon Barkley coming in 29th, he finished 9th. So who is your week 8 player
How
in
dare
Fantasy
you call
Blitz?
him a weak player?
I did. He does have unbelievable quads.
He does. So this one, I was trying not to go super obvious, and this might end up biting me because it's almost too obvious at the same time. But Jahmyr Gibbs is coming in currently ranked 28th, and they are going up against Vegas. He just came off a game without Montgomery with 1 touchdown and 68 yards on the ground in a game they were behind the entire game. And because they were behind, he also had 9 catches for 58 yards. His best of his entire career, his single best game. Deontay Foreman against Vegas just had 2 touchdowns, 89 yards on the ground, 3 for 31, and 1 through the air. Just absolutely lit up Vegas. And that's Foreman versus Gibbs. I think Gibbs is a little bit more talented than Deontay Foreman at this point. So with Gibbs, without Montgomery, likely again heading into a bye after this next week, I think they will likely rest Montgomery one more week, let him heal. Then he gets a bye week to really come back. So I think it'll be Gibbs' show again. And given what he was just able to do, I think that he will probably repeat, if not do even better in this next game. If Foreman can light up Vegas, I'm sure Gibbs will be just fine with a ridiculous offensive line in front of them.
Hold on to your butts, because this one's a wild one. This one could either hit or be really embarrassing, and again, I won't be in my chair if this is really embarrassing. But I believe the switch is officially happening. My Fantasy Blitz player this week is ranked 54th, and he is available in 73% of leagues, so that's kind of saying what I'm doing here. Devin Singletary, yes, the former Buffalo Bill. Dameon Pierce has been bad. He's just been really bad. I understand the offensive line has been bad, but Singletary in the last game, I know he was just on bye, but I think that's also going to help them because I think they're going to make the switch, and it's at least going to be 50-50. At least 50-50, and I think Singletary is a better running back currently than Dameon Pierce. He went 12 for 58, 4.8 a carry. Before that, he had no more than 9 carries. He's facing Carolina, that's giving up 144.3 yards on the ground this year so far. He went, like I said, 12 for 58 against a New Orleans defense that is really good against the run. So, again, this could be a hit or miss, but he is available. There's a lot of running back injuries right now. Phil just mentioned one with David Montgomery. He can be picked up and put in your flex position, and I honestly do believe that he is a better running back currently, and this is coming from me, who didn't really like Devin Singletary. I think he's a better running back, a better pass catcher than Dameon Pierce, and I think the switch is happening. I think they use the bye to adjust that position, and I think they're going to go more Devin Singletary, because I think they're sitting at 3-3. I think they're going to lean on Devin Singletary more than Dameon Pierce, just because I think he's a better running back for this team right now than Dameon Pierce is.
Are you saying pick up Singletary? Is that what you're...
I'm saying pick up Singletary, and when he wins you this week, send me money.
That's fair.
Not much, just, a thank you.
I mean, we haven't really been picking too many players that you can pick up, so this is a little bit different. So
I'm trying.
Nice switch up.
I'm trying to help. Trying to help you win games, but also players that are available. So toot toot, beep beep. There you go. We'll move on to our final segment here. And this came down the line just before we started recording, so kind of an instant reaction. Chase Frazier, 1-year deal, re-upped. He was a qualified offer plus, so the deal was expected. But to get him locked in before training camp opens up is a nice thing, because he actually gets to go to training camp then. So, Phil, Chase Frazier, 1 more year in Buffalo, fan favorite. I know he's one of your favorite players as well. He's back 1 more year. Hopefully he can stay healthy for the full year. We're going to get a full year of Chase Frazier on that one of those righties that can boost this offense and take it to heights that we have seen before.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him for a full year again. I mean, we talk about it way too often to this point with how injured the Bandits offense was last year and just how little that full lineup really got a chance to play together, and arguably they never did if you consider Brandon Robinson part of that full lineup. I think McCauley stepped in really well, so I mean, I think that is a give or take, but for the most part, you just didn't see that full lineup together until playoffs, and then all of a sudden playoffs hit, and I mean, look what they did to Toronto. They ended up winning the championship with that full lineup, so I think it's really exciting to see what this team, if they can stay healthy, which at this point is sadly kind of a big if after last year. I don't want to just say they're going to be healthy this year. I mean, we could absolutely see what happened last year happen all over again. So hopefully they stay healthy, with Frazier coming into the season healthy and getting a full, training camp underneath him. I think it'll be really good for him, really good for the team, and it's exciting to see what this offense will look like for an entire season if they can stay healthy, and just what kind of, I don't know, what the active player lineup will actually look like. I mean, we talk about how deep this team is. I think they're really deep again this year, and I think we could see some arguably surprising lineup inactives on a week-to-week basis, depending on who they're playing and what's going on.
Yeah, so this leaves Nanakoke, Adler, and Smith, who need deals. Smith franchise tagged, so he's locked in. And then Adler and Nanakoke, they are both still have their rights with Buffalo, so none of them are going anywhere. It's just waiting for the deal to come across their desk, sign pen to paper, and get them into camp.
Now, do you get the originals?
Me?
Yeah, well, you said it comes across your desk. Do you get to see the original contract that is signed?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I phone them into the league office.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know if you knew that.
I
do it for free.
When did you get this?
I just volunteer my time.
I was going to say, as a volunteer, that's pretty great.
Yeah, it's recent. It's a recent kind of thing.
The sad thing is that we would both volunteer for that kind of job.
We would, yeah. I mean, I'll do it for free. If
exactly,
you need somebody to do paperwork, I'll do it for free. What do I care?
Yeah.
I got
phone
time
into
on my hands.
some
Okay.
NLL officials sounds great.
Yeah, why not? Just give me a hoodie or something. More money at the casino after the game, something. I mean, I don't need money, just some kind of compensation.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, just tell me to kick rocks.
To go to a practice or something and pass around with the team. That'd be a good time.
Yeah, why not? Light me up. Put me against the boards and have Priolo check me. I don't care. Memories. All right. With camp starting up soon, we wanted to take a look at the rookies coming in, or just some of the fresh faces in camp that we believe might have a chance to make a name for themselves in camp. Because like we said, if we're going on what has been happening in past years, there's 21 active spots, there's 4 practice squad spots, so 25 real legit spots to make this team. If you exclude the IR, the PUP, the holdout, and all those other fancy lists that they also have. So there's some names here, and all of these are more fresh face. I'm not going to include Steve Orleman because we've talked to death about him, but these are more rookie names or guys that we believe if they make the team might have some people scratching their heads and go, who is this? So we're kind of wanted to dive more into this. This was your idea. This is your baby. So if you want to run through the new faces that are around in Banditland.
Sure. I mean, we talked a little bit about Q on the last episode. He was someone, essentially, you and I both kind of believe a camp body, but 6'4", 215, only 24 years old, has gone to a camp with Georgia last year, so he's not completely new to the NLL. He's just newer to the Buffalo Bandits. I don't even know. Is that considered a rookie still if he's never played a game?
I believe so. He doesn't have any cruise seasons.
Right. Okay. We will consider him a rookie. So even though he's been to camp, he's still a rookie. I think, to me, probably just a camp body. Same with Dan Krutkowski. Again, anything can happen, so I'm not trying to knock down any of these players, but the competition is ridiculously stiff to make the Buffalo Bandits roster. Brian Wiles, 5'8", 180. Again, to me, a similar situation. So to me, the bigger ones to talk about, Evan Konstantopoulos. There you go, not Constantinople. I think he's going to be interesting-ish. I just do not see him making much. I think I don't know. I don't really understand that one to me. I think with Shanahan and Vince, I just don't see another spot in Orleman for a fourth goalie, even if you're gonna. I mean, you and I in our active rosters kind of had 3 goalies making the team. I don't know. Again, it's definitely not bad to get somebody like him in camp, see what he's got going on. I'm happy they drafted him. Just kind of shocked they signed him. I don't know where you hide a player like that, especially one who's 6'6". Really difficult to hide a guy that is that tall. So I don't know what's going to kind of go on with him. I think he's a great prospect, and I would love for him to stay in the system. But with 3 likely, possibly active goalies on your roster, I don't see a spot for him compared to losing some of these other players. So Duncan Carte.
We'll stop right here for a second. I agree with you with Q, Kurkowski, and Wiles. I believe those are just more camp bodies. Again, there could be surprises. There could be injuries in camp. There could be holdouts and stuff that you don't see coming. So I fully understand and agree with bringing extra bodies into camp, not just because, hey, they could make a name for themselves in camp and, make the team. They could surprise some people. And this is not a shot at them whatsoever. It's just the numbers are the numbers, and the players that are ahead of you in there's a lot of names you got to jump to be able to make this roster. But it's also like, hey, there's only so many teams in here. There's only so many players in this league. It's not bad to bring these guys in and get a look at them, because not only that, but they'll remember this down the line where, hey, if this guy sparks, if he comes onto a different team and just kind of takes off, when he becomes a UFA, he might have interest in coming back to Buffalo, because Buffalo is the one that gave them the first chance. Not just that, but like if there's injuries in camp and stuff like that, where if there's injuries down the line, these guys are going to be able to come in. They already know the system. They already know the players. They're competing for teams and roster spots like that. So they're going to be able to bring them in. Evan Konstantopoulos, and that's the way I'm going to pronounce his name because I don't really care. My mic, I'm allowed to say what I want. I think he's a very interesting prospect, but I'm kind of with you where, it's so tough to make this team, especially when you already traded for Steve Orleman. If you didn't trade for him, I think you could sneak him onto the practice squad, because I think having 3 goalies is important. They might just say, hey, you're 19, go to college. Don't play lacrosse because you're not going to be able to because you're already signing an all deal. But go to college, get an education, throw you on the holdout list right now so you can remain with the Buffalo Bandits. But he could make a name for himself just because of how big he is. There are a lot of young goalies in this league that are making names for themselves, so I'm not counting him out. It's just it's going to be very tough, and probably the people that work on the jerseys are kind of rooting against it because it's a lot of more work, because it's a lot more letters they got to put on a jersey. But, who knows? I know you love young backup goalies and love rooting for the underdog.
I do. And again, I do agree. I think he's a great prospect, and I'm
Yes.
excited that he's part of this organization. And I think, to me, like exactly what you just said, I think the best case scenario, you toss him on the holdout list because he doesn't want to join the NLL just yet, and you keep him in the organization. You get a good camp look at him. And again, anyone can surprise, but given that you have two NLL, I don't want to say ready, but people that have had NLL experience ahead of you in Orleman and Shanahan as backup, I just don't see him beating out either of them. I mean, it's very possible that he comes in and plays ridiculous, but I just don't see him beating him out. So if they can throw him on the holdout list, I'm still okay with the draft pick. That part doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I think he's a good prospect, so hopefully they can find a way to keep him in the system, and we'll see how he ends up doing.
Yeah, you can continue after this one. I don't really have much to say about Duncan Carte. I think he's a very interesting player. When they drafted him, I was excited to see what he was and would become. I was hoping that they wouldn't sign him right away because I
Same.
don't think he has. I don't think he's going to be making the team in a traditional sense of it. But he's definitely 150% my type of player.
Yeah, he's another one who I think his most of his excitement for me comes from Stamper from IL Indoor. He did all of his prospect list type stuff for the draft, and he is the one who ended up being the highest ranked on his list that the Bandits ended up drafting in general. I think he was 80 something that he was picked, and
82.
Stamper had him all the way up in the 30s for when he was going to get drafted. So I think the fact that he fell 50 spots is interesting. He is coming off an injury, but he is supposed to be healthy currently, so that might have been why he fell a little bit. But they said he's essentially an NLL ready defender. Might take a year, but at the same time, they loved his combination of size, strength, skill, athleticism, infectious energy, and touch of a nasty streak. Exactly like you just said, your type of player. I think he's kind of my bubble guy, where I think he's got a chance if he can really make a name for himself in camp. I think he does have a chance to crack the lineup. I don't think it's going to be easy by any means, but I think he's got that opportunity, and I hope, again, he's another one that I really hope they find a way to keep in the system. And I will let you talk about your boy who's coming up next.
Yeah, these next two names are probably the most interesting names on this list. Cam Wires, he was the first one to sign this offseason for the rookies. I mean, Dylan Robinson signed last year, but I'm just talking about this offseason for the draft picks of 2022. 2 years, I mean, he played with the Archers in the PLL and won the championship there. He was the first-round draft pick last year, 13th overall, one before Dylan Robinson. And then Zach Belter, another first-round pick last year, 19th overall. He's signed a 2-year deal, both defensemen, both 6'5", both a hair over 220 in pounds. He's coming over from St. Bonaventure. 50 career games, 62 caused turnovers, 93 loose balls for Belter. And with Loyola, with Cam Wires, 157 loose balls, 79 caused turnovers. These guys, what did we preach all last season, Phil, for the defense? You need to cause more turnovers. You need that. We thought that the cause turnovers are better sticky stat than loose balls, because loose balls, they only tell part of the stories. Cause turnovers, it's the direct turnover, and it goes the other way very quickly. So I think both of these guys, I have Cam Wires, and we both did it. We both have Cam Wires making the team as one of the active players week in and week out. Zach Belter is one of those guys that I think is making the team regardless. It's just, can he push for one of those 21 spots, or is he going to be stuck on the practice squad? It's just, both of these guys are the prototypical exact pinpoint. If you're designing a defenseman that I wanted to bring in this team 2 off seasons ago, that was exactly who it was, and that's exactly who they're bringing in, is in Wires and Belter, and I love them both.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you look at someone else on the team that they might be able to kind of frame their game around. I don't know if you know that Steve Priolo is pretty good at lacrosse, and he's also
And growing beards.
and he is also, interestingly enough, 6'5". So interesting that they would bring in 2 younger players who are both 6'5", and while Priolo is still around, still playing at an elite level, they can learn a ton from him, and almost like they're getting ready to pass the torch in a way. I don't know when Priolo's going to hang it up. He could have a few more years under his belt, and I wouldn't mind having 2 or 3 Steve Priolos out on the field at the same time. So I love both of these players quite a bit. I do agree that I think that they are the ones who can push to make the team. They're both athletic, but they're both big, and those cause turnovers numbers are impressive for both. The loose balls are impressive for both. they're both really solid defensemen. I do think they both have a shot at making it again. First round picks, you're not going to let them just escape without making, having a chance to make the team. I don't think either way, like you mentioned, I just don't see them not making the team in some way because you're not letting a 13th and 19th overall pick go to another team for free.
Yeah, we'll just round this out with the rest of the 2022 class. Ryan Sharkey, defenseman, 73rd overall 2 years ago. Christian Watts, he's a forward from 2 years ago, 82nd overall. And then you finish off with Austin Bloomberg, 5th round pick, 88th overall in the transition game. So one in each department of the game minus goaltenders. I think out of all of those, I think they all can make a name for themselves. Bloomberg, I know you're the highest on. You had him making the practice squad, I believe, because of the transition ability. I'm interested because I think all these guys you invested a draft pick in. I mean, the first three guys that we named, the Q, the Kurkowski, and the Wiles, you didn't actually invest any draft capital in. These three guys you did. So, again, I was a fan of Nick Miller. I was a fan of Colin Monroe a couple years ago. It'll be interesting to see if these guys make a push for a spot and make a name for themselves in camp.
Yeah, Watts and Bloomberg were definitely the other two on my list that have a potential to make it. Watts, if they want a forward out of this group, I think he's definitely the one. I think, like you said, I mean, what he ended up with the league record, 115 points, 63 goals, 52 assists. I mean, that's just insane in what he was able to do, and it wasn't in that minute. Was it 56? So that was his collegiate career. He had 98 points in 56 games. That looks really good as well. But again, just part of the Upstate Collegiate Box Lacrosse League. So the Bandits have a really good view of what this forward already is. He's been, someone that they can keep a close eye on in that league. And I think just with the size he is, the ability he has, if they want a forward out of this group to make it, I think he's the one. And then Bloomberg, exactly like you said, I mean, making the practice squad simply because he's a transition player. He's a good one for sure. I mean, 47 loose balls, 54, 12, 66 total. And again, in the Upstate Collegiate Lacrosse League, that he can also be looked at very closely by the Bandits, so they know what they're kind of looking at with him as well. 24, 25, 49 for points. So he's a transition player that can truly score at a high level. And I think that's, I don't want to say really rare, but I mean, at the same time, a lot of transition players are arguably better at defense than they are at offense. Yes, they can put the ball in, but at the same time, it's not their forte. And he seems to be someone who is tipped a little bit more toward forward than defense, but another player that I think that the Bandits could just use bonus transition players on this team. We talked about it a lot last episode, and pretty much ever since it happened, Ian McKay, when he went down, there was just, I don't know, just a gasp of panic a little bit as you don't have a player to replace him. I'm not saying Bloomberg could easily step into McKay, who we thought was one of the best transition players in the entire league last year, but at the same time, you need somebody behind McKay that can step into that role a little bit, even if it's not quite up to that ability. But at the same time, the Bandits really don't have someone like Ian McKay on their team. If Ian McKay does go down, they don't really have a depth backup player behind him that has a similar skill set, and I think Bloomberg could be that player.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just going to go over a couple numbers here and how many active bodies that all these teams have in camp. Albany has 35 players in camp right now. I mean, these are going to include the IR, the PUP, the holdouts, and all those things that are already there. But these are just the guys that are currently under contract. Albany has 35. Calgary has 33. Colorado has a whopping 43. Georgia 39. Halifax 41. Vegas 40. New York 36. Panther City 36. Philly 40. Rochester 37. San Diego 39. Saskatchewan 31. Toronto 34. And Vancouver 36. So again, if you're keeping it to 25 healthy bodies, a lot of these teams have to trim down their rosters. So I'm not saying that you're going to be able to make trades. We saw this last year where Jordan Storos get traded right before the rosters were due, and you brought in Kellen LeClaire. So we already know Steve Dietrich is not afraid to make moves. That's another reason why we wanted to go over these players, because while they might not make the Buffalo Bandits, there could be openings just because of how deep the Buffalo Bandits are, and some of these other teams are not as deep. So some of these players that we mentioned here, I think we mentioned 9 players here that might not make the Buffalo Bandits. You might see those names if they do get cut, or they just are on that bubble and there's just not enough room for them, get shipped out. So again, while you might not see the orange and black on this player's back, like that, they might be shipped to another team and you might see their name there. And since you're facing every team this year, don't be surprised if you do see one of these names pop up when you're facing them and when the Buffalo Bandits are facing them later in the season. So that's why these names, even if you just get a call to come to camp and sign a one-year deal, even though you might not make the team, you're making a name for yourself around the league, and there are openings that could be had because this is a physical sport and players go down all the time.
Yeah, and Dietrich's going to have to do the offseason shuffle that I'm sure he has to kind of contemplate every single year of if he does cut these players and they are just sitting out there for free, does somebody immediately scoop them up, or can he find a way to trade someone instead of just cutting them for free? So, I mean, that's also going to be a really tough position to be in and kind of a bummer of one, especially with a lineup this loaded. Just a lot of these players that I would love to make the team and could easily make a name for themselves in the NLL are sadly just not going to be able to find a way onto this roster because it is just loaded, like we've mentioned so many times, because it's very, very true. They're pretty much just running back a championship squad, and when you've won it once and gone to so many in a row, you can easily have the luxury of just running it back again with a lot of confidence.
So, Phil, that pretty much wraps up what we got here. Do you have anything else to add to this show before we shut it down for another week?
The Bills better fix it.
That's fair. I
That's
agree.
all I got for them. Fix whatever is going on and do it now.
Yeah. So on our next show, we'll, even though it will be days and days later, we'll talk about the game on Thursday night versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. We got some Bills games to go over. We'll have week 9 of our Fantasy Blitz, and then any more fun and interesting topics for the Buffalo Bandits. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on Twitter /X and Blue Sky now at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.